So Destroysa is a Belgian brewery. I think they're pretty avant-garde, very cutting edge, very much Pipeworks, I think. And BJ, I think you went and somehow, I don't know how, started brewing with him before kind of Pipeworks began. Can you tell the story of how you met Urbane and what the time was like? Truth be told, that's how I first heard of Pipeworks. You had a blog,
right?
And I had I got a hardcore man crush on that blog. I was like, this is amazing. And then I found out that the people who were writing the blog were based in Chicago, and it's the only person I've ever Facebook stalked was you. I was like, this guy's in Chicago, I've got to find him and just send him a random message telling him how much I love that blog. So thank you for writing that blog, but try to, I don't know, impart some of that magic.
So I had never met Urban before. So like, all right, this was already at the point where me and
Urban's
the owner. Urbane, I don't know his last name. Coutier or Couteau, you're right. I had never met him actually. So I mean, the story started out with like, me and Garrett are gonna open this brewery. It's gonna happen. It doesn't have a name yet. We're gonna open a brewery. Neither of us have ever worked at a brewery. We're dope home brewers, to tilt my own hat there, but you know, like, I've never even touched a tri-clamp before in my life at this point.
There's no half-acre metropolitan.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go
that we can go, hey, what's going on, you know?
So I mean, it was like, well, what are we gonna do? We got to learn how to do this, you know, like in our commercial thing. And so Christina had met Urban, Christina, who owns West Lakeview Liquors, and had a working relationship with Urban, knew him well. And I mean, really, it was an email that said, hey, can we come work for you? End of story.
Well, also this is right at the English Channel across from London, the border of France, where they have very cold, dry, brutal, not dry, but I guess humid, I don't know, just bad, brutal winters.
Not for Chicago boys.
And we're unaware of the fact that he basically did everything himself. You know, it's like a one-man show.
Yeah.
Where we have 12 people to do the job at our brewery that he would do basically by
and
himself.
Essentially, like,
so he wanted to.
Urban was like, come on, come American boys.
A couple young eager people are going to come help you out for the winter. Yeah.
And I asked him when I met him if that's something he regularly does, is take on apprentices, so to speak. And he's like,
first.
No.
Oh. Well, Owen.
Like, no.
After.
Yeah. I was like, have you done a lot of people? He's like, no.
There was an English guy a long time ago.
Okay, yeah. But it certainly isn't like, okay, yeah, I can pencil you guys in for this summer or that next winter.
It was new. It was different.
Yeah. And so then you show up. You've never done any production or professional brewing before. Is that correct?
Yeah. I had.
Were you scared? I mean, I would be scared shitless having not done anything,
crazy.
going to destroy.
I was like leaving my now wife, but my girlfriend at the time, for 3 months on this ostrich adventure. Yeah, it was weird, you know. I'll preface it by saying that, like, I got crazy with studying right before I went. Like, so a good friend of mine, Will Johnston, who was one of the head brewers over at Goose Island at the time, would let me come and like hang out at Goose Island in the giant Fulton facility. And you don't do anything there to brew. You press buttons on a computer screen. So I was just like, oh, cool. Look, 312 is being made, neato. But
so that's how you brew 312.
But
push that button.
But he was a Siebel grad, and he had all these, you know, giant 1,000-page books from Siebel, and I literally like cover to covered him before I left, and like took cliff notes. I went out there and my brain was just like throbbing with information. I was just like, Urban, I'm ready for you. But I was terrified, you know. I was like, and then once we started seeing the breweries and stuff, and the lack of technology in Belgium, it was just like mind-blowing.
There's breweries literally that there's pieces of the wall missing, and the snow is coming in as you're brewing.
And when they say that he did everything himself, I don't even think it does that justice to imagine doing everything at Pipeworks themselves, because the traditional Belgian brewery is kind of situated top to bottom. So the beer, the beer starts at the top and it works its way down until the finished product comes out at the bottom. I mean, that's simplifying things, but what that means is, well, beer starts out with hundreds and hundreds of pounds of grain, and it starts at the top, so you have to lug grain all the way up the top manually or with a friggin' pulley or something. And that was what was amazing, is it was like journeying into the past. Like, you were going into the past and writing about it, and I was just sitting there reading about it. So, like, talk about what brewing in a small Belgian craft brewery is like.
Well, we were lucky. We were able to brew it like 4 or 5 different facilities over the time that we were there. Like, so the big production facility, which is called Deca, which is kind of a contract brewery, where Urban's big batches get made.
Be similar to the Proof.
Yeah, to
It's
Proof.
a little smaller.
But I mean, like, that place was like a throwback to the past. I mean, the mash tun, like, I mean, it had mash mixers in it, but literally there was like leather belts on pulleys running across the room with no guards or anything. Like, if you misstepped, man, like, your head was getting sucked in there. I mean, it was a really dangerous work environment. I mean, it was like super old school. They were telling me, actually, in the past, it was like horse-drawn, you know? They would have a horse wheel where they would have several horses running in a circle, and that's what would make the mash mixer go. It's been replaced by some noisy diesel engine at this point. But I mean, it was another world. Like, my only other production
It's not
experience-
electrical, it's diesel driven?
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, it was like a gas engine. I mean, it was
awesome.
old school. Open fermentation, you know, like you go into a room and it's just filled with CO2 and it's like noxious and horrible. Like, it was like, and they would all play jokes. They'd be like, oh, take a look, and you put your head in there and it's just like, boom.
Yeah.
Just pass out.
Yeah, it was
fall
another
into
world.
here and die.
Silly Americans.
Yeah.
It's just a new ingredient, you know, aged on Americans.
So what did you learn from there about the brewing process? What did you take away, and what can people taste in Pipeworks beers that they're drinking today that came from maybe Destroys?
I mean, I think what BJ always says, and it's more like a cold ice bath that you just jump into, and it's less about the brewing, the technical brewing side, and more kind of about how to be a brewer, and this is the kind of work it's going to be, and this is the hours you're going to be keeping, and
Right.
this is the culture you're around. These are great people you're going to meet, because that's what a lot of it was in Belgium.
Yeah.
People coming to the farm, or going to Brussels, or wherever, and meeting the different people that make the beer culture so famous in Belgium.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Europe, and so it was a lot less about the actual brewing than it was
Right.
more kind of the culture.
And I think that, like, what we learned is that we were good brewers. You know, when we saw what they were doing there, we were like, oh, this is home brewing on a larger scale. And so we gained confidence in that fact. But I think, like, kind of expounding on what Garrett said, is we learned how to run the brewery and learned everything that it takes, but between, like, how to make a label, not the ins and outs of it, but like what makes an attractive label, like how to distribute beer. I mean, we did it all there. Like, I mean, we were literally driving in, like, his little, what kind of van was that? Jumper or something, and like delivering beer, around the country.
Sounds kind of similar to what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You spend an afternoon and you drive up to the Netherlands and deliver beer in the Netherlands.
Absolutely.
And you come back, and so.
So I mean, I think what it instilled with us was that confidence.
Absolutely.
That we can do this. Like, we did it all there, and we saw one, like, Belgian man doing all this, and we're like, dude, we're young men, we're creative, we're smart, we're ready to go.
I mean, one of the other big things is, like, we're looking at equipment and we're going, I have no idea what this equipment is, like. Because most of the equipment posted online is, like $100,000 machines that are for giant breweries.
Right.
And we're going, oh, how are we ever going to get that? What are we going to do with that? And, I show up on my first day there, and it's just one guy just putting a bottle down on this Italian thing that's made from hell that breaks every 5 seconds. And it's putting the labels on. I go, oh, okay, so it's that easy? Oh, it's cool. We can do that.
Right.
Or, how do you cap off the bottles correctly? And it's like, oh, that's really that simple? Okay.
Yeah, going from
We
0
can
to
do
60, it's like you have this idea of what a brewery is,
Right.
what you've seen on TV, and like all this like crazy like industrial equipment, and you're like, how am I going to take my little thing and make it up to this? And then like you get to Belgium, and it's like literally an old dairy tank with the top cut off, and the guy's just dumping grain in the top, and he's like, that's beer.
So the reality for
Good, cool, I can do that. I can make that.
So the reality for smaller size breweries is, it's somewhere in the middle of home brewing and, the large scale industrial brewing.
Mm-hmm.
So then you guys kind of had the bug, you went to Belgium and kind of saw that it was obtainable. It could be less / more than this button makes 312. And you came home and said, we're gonna do this, we're gonna be, Pipeworks, we're gonna make our own beer. Okay. Well, it's easy to say that. You had said that before. You had already said that at
Can I do a little sidebar real quick?
Yeah.
So like, all right. So the first day that I get to Belgium, like I get in the van. I'm like, hey, Urban, nice to meet you. Blah blah. I've Skyped with the man before, but never met him face to face. And the first thing he tells me is like, he's like on his cell phone. He's like, I have a collaboration lined up, so your brewery can be on a bottle in Belgium. And like, I'm like, what? I was like, our brewery doesn't even have a damn name. And so literally like the first like 3 weeks in Belgium, like Garrett was still back at home and I'm like Skyping Garrett because I'm like, dude, we need to come up with a name for the brewery, a logo, we're gonna be on a bottle, we gotta get this ready right now. And it was like every single day, like late at night, I'd be on Skype with him and we're like trying to figure out the name of the brewery. And so literally like Pipeworks,
it's like 24 hours before labels had to go to print.
Yeah, seriously. And I'm like doing mock-ups of like hundreds of like different logos. I'm like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And we're just like, that one's good, we like that.
Awesome. So you guys, yeah, came up with the name and the, I guess, visual identity of the beer because Urbane said,
yeah, I mean,
yeah, all right, you guys, your brewery is going to be on a label. Yeah. That's awesome. So you have your brewery, you're done, you've kind of learned your thing, as I was mentioning before. A lot of people can say, okay, we're going to do a brewery, we're going to make one now. Now what? You guys weren't kind of independently wealthy enough to just start brewing.
Enough? I mean,
yeah.
That suggested we had some independent.
I don't know. I didn't want to be presumptive. You know, I didn't want to say, yeah, you guys were dirt poor, but
that's true.
but you certainly didn't have enough to just bankroll a production brewery on your own. So what did you do? I know the story a little bit, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective because you guys were kind of some of the first to do what you did.
Yep. Well, we got back in, BJ got back in, I think, beginning of April or the end of March, and I got back a little bit. He stayed a little bit longer and he went to France for a little bit, so that was fun. But we basically spent almost 2 years, so a year and 9 months, just kind of in limbo without any idea of how to get the money, who do we talk to, right. What do we do.
And this was also during the time when, like, this is when the homebrewing was happening. Like, right. We got back from Belgium, and that's when we were like, oh, we have to come up with recipes for our brewery. But
at the same time, a batch of homebrew beer might cost us $60. It might cost someone else $30, but like for us, it'd be $60 because we're going to $11.40 on OGs and things, and we didn't have any money to begin with, so the homebrewing was taking quite its toll on us.
Sure.
And there was a good year and 9 months, like I said, but there was just literally nothing. We didn't have the first clue of how we were going to make this happen.
I think in that first year, we probably spent like upwards of like $5,000 or $6,000 just on like new brewing equipment, grain. Like, I mean, we were just like putting stuff on credit cards. Just like it has to get done. Like we have to be making experimental recipes. We have to get to an end goal. And like there's no funding coming in. Like we're both like. Working at liquor stores and stuff. We were working at liquor stores then, but we were just doing odd jobs and stuff, and it was intense.
And it was a little bit of a letdown too, because when we were in Belgium, we were kind of getting a little notoriety as the American boys, and they're like, oh, you got to capitalize on this, strike while the iron's hot, and then we come back and nothing happens. And now you're a year past coming back, and it's like, oh, okay, well that was great being in Belgium, but that doesn't really help us at this point. Right now.
Right.
Because the momentum's kind of stalled.
There was definitely that feeling at a certain point where we were like, oh God, the bubble's going to burst. Like, we missed the opportunity.
Right. I remember feeling the same way. Yeah. When my thing got
I remember watching
I missed out on craft beer. Luckily we didn't. So you guys then came... Kickstarter. You were the first. You were the Kickstarter brewery, the success story, and the model for so many other breweries.
I had a really smart friend I went to high school with, and he was mentioned on the cover of New York Times, I believe, in the business section, if they have a business section.
I think they probably do.
And it was about this new website that they had used called Kickstarter to get funds for a competing social media site to compete with Facebook. Because this was at the time when the first rumblings were happening on Facebook and your privacy not being what it should be. So these people were these programmers were trying to get money so they could make a private social network. So we looked into it and we said, oh, this is not really for businesses. And then we we submitted anyways to Kickstarter, and this was when it was still in beta mode, so there's only a few thousand projects on there. I think now there's like 100,000.
Yeah.
But there's only a few thousand, and it's still in beta mode. And we got accepted, and we said, oh, we have to make a video. So luckily, BJ has some very talented friends that have worked on some TV shows and things, and so we went to the thrift store with, you know, like 50 bucks. We bought as many props as we could. And we wrote a script out on a notebook real quick, and we handed it to BJ's friends, Phil, and Phil's brother, and the next weekend we were shooting over 2 days. We shot the little video that's on Kickstarter, and we prayed for the best.
And then we worked our asses off to make sure that we got that money.
And this is before crowdfunding was really kind of a thing. And
yeah, I mean
that's what I feel like is important to kind of make known, is that
it wasn't like just put Kickstarter up and then money came in. Right. Know? It was like
we were halfway
it was
through,
2 months of terror.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. Like, I mean, it was that kind of thing where it was like, I mean, in the back of our heads, me and Garrett both knew, we were like, dude, our entire, like, the last, like, 4 years of our lives and the, like, concepting of this business rides on this singular thing. We're like, this is the money to start our business. And so, I mean, at the time, like, I mean, we were, like, doing so many crazy things. Like, luckily Garrett at the time had been working with some social media stuff, like really learning the ins and outs of like advertising on Facebook through a company he was working with. So like we were like paying for advertising on Facebook to promote the Kickstarter.
I know it seems like an odd thing for like a 24-year-old kid to do, but we literally had no money.
Right.
So I was taking my mom's credit card out of her purse, and I always say we started the brewery with about $1,500 worth of pay-per-click advertisements.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money on that.
We threw well $1,500 bucks, but that was it. And we were watching it all day. We'd budget like $25 a day on that.
We got we went out and did flyer outs, like you know, all the clubs did.
Down the street.
Like we'd go out and like put flyers, posters, and like Hopleaf's wall. You know, going to the map room, putting up posters.
And then we tried to schedule the homebrew events, which was before the TTB was really kind of
they didn't really know
what was going on.
They didn't care. Yeah, they didn't know it was probably better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we were able to schedule about, I don't know, 10 or 11 events that we could bring the beer that we've been working, the homebrew beer that we were working on, and we went through like 4 or 5 months worth of homebrew beer in the matter of those 4-week events.
Yeah, literally like probably like 25 kegs, I think.
We were able to do like a half acres on Photon,
of 6 barrels.
Which was a great event. But
yeah, on Photon was huge for us. I mean, we had 6 beers at Half Acre on their big Christmas party, you know, and it was just like, it was amazing to be there and be like, we felt like such a real brewery. We were like, we have 6 beers. Like, we have all these options, man. Like, we had built this like little draft box and it only had 4 spouts, and we still had like 2 corny kegs, and we're filling up pitchers. We have all these options for you. We're the best home brewers ever.
Now give us money. Yeah. So then
and it worked.
And it worked.
It worked.
Yeah. So congrats to you guys. I didn't know it was. I mean, I knew you guys were some of the first, but I had no idea that's how it had gone. And now, is there a little bit of kind of a feeling when you see other breweries doing it, being like, man, you guys have no idea how much we helped you, or you have no idea how hard it was for us?
I think there's definitely kind of a, because this was the fall of 2010, right? And then so quite a few came after that. But I think it's kind of a common thing now, so it's very cool when you see a brewery get on there, you go, yes, go get your money. Like, if people are willing to believe in you, yes, by all means, do it.
Do you think it's easier for people to get money now?
I don't know. I say if you have a great idea and the neighborhood needs it and wants and supports it, then yeah, absolutely. Because there is kind of it's already set a precedent that this will work. Or it can work if you believe in these people and they're going to work hard enough to
I think it is a little easier just because now there's national attention.
Right.
Like, you can look in like Beer Advocate magazine and they're talking about the like wave of Kickstarters, and you know, like there's a lot of attention now in the media where me and Garrett were like calling news reporters, like we're like, hey, Chicago Reader, we're doing this thing, like, hey, do you think this is cool? You want a read article? You know, like we had to like go seek it out, where now I think that the media is a little bit more in tune with it and like is like, oh, look, they're doing this thing that's been done, we should report on it. So I think it is a little easier. I mean, you still have to like do your due diligence. You have to work really hard to get that money, hands down.
So then why, so fast forwarding a little bit, simplifying it probably quite a lot, why did you guys decide to launch with this beer? This is the beer that was the first one that you put on shelves.
Oh, the happy
Why
accident.
this?
We did not decide to launch with this beer. This is just the first
Well,
beer
this
that
was the first beer.
No, it
yeah.
was, but we did not decide to do that. This is what happened.
The fermentation decided for us.
Yeah.
So
Well, we originally let's put it this way. We are the way we think about beer and the way we thought about how we have to run a brewery was, definitely more constraint when we haven't ever done it before.
Right.
So now as we kind of figure things out, we're a little more relaxed. But we wanted to do everything bottle conditioned. Belgian style, everything had to be bottle conditioned, and so we started brewing beers. Dark beers or non-hoppy beers that we were going to bottle condition. So we'd actually brewed 2 batches before this, but they were still sitting in warm conditioning.
because we did decide to bottle condition.
Right.
So the funny story about this beer is, it's our biggest, it's the first big hit of Pipeworks. Like, oh my God, Ninja vs. Unicorn is what we're renowned for. So it's funny coming from the homebrew roots,
This beer almost never made it out there.
No, it almost never made it out the door because we weren't used to tasting beers, X amount of days into fermentation.
when you
There's
put
a
a beer in
sample
a
cock on the
cardboard,
thing. It's
yeah.
great. You can taste it every day.
Right.
You're like, oh man, that fucking tastes funny. And I think on day 6 we're tasting this and we're like, dude, this is totally fucked.
Well, so we don't have
we should dump it. We should rebrew it right now. We screwed it up.
because the sooner you dump it and refill in that tank, the sooner you could hopefully recoup some of those costs.
Right,
and at the
right.
time, we also
Like fail fast.
Yeah, exactly.
We
We're
still
like-
didn't have any money, so it was very important that
Yeah, and this is after
anything-
waiting for 6 months of licensing, and we're running out of the last little bit
Right.
of bank account money where we're like, dude, we need to make $1 now.
Yeah, money has to start coming in the other
Right.
direction. Yeah.
And so it turned out we were just hasty and didn't know what the hell was going on with our fermentation at all at that scale. And so it was just the normal fermentation process. There was just this off flavor that as a home brewer you never taste because God forbid you ever open up that damn carboy and stick a goddamn dip tube in there. That's infection city. But having that little goddamn sample cock on the side of the tank, it's a dangerous thing at first because you're like, oh, I'm gonna taste it on day 2. It's that tastes like crap, man. Active fermentation does not taste good. Let me tell you.
But then it cleared up and
We dry hopped the crap out of it.
And then
The dry hopping helped. Yeah, the dry hopping helped a lot.
See what the dry hopping did too is it ended up we've learned a lot in our days. The solids in there, they have the negative polarity, and so it actually bonded the yeast to it. It helped everything dropped out, and then we had clear beer, and then we're like, God damn, that clear beer is delicious. We were tasting
right.
a bunch of yeast and.
So before I move on, I want to kind of reset, but I have to ask, what is the deal with unicorns and ninjas?
This is a joke. Like everything.
During that 2-year period where BJ and I said, or year and 9-month period where nothing was happening. We besides homebrewing, we
sat at the map room a ton.
lot.
There was a lot of time at the map room.
and we needed to have some kind of momentum going during the week. Some kind of talking about business ideas or whatever. So just on my little iPod or whatever, I have just notes full of just names we'd come up with while we were sitting there. And this was kind of where we were sitting there going, when you look at some beers, they kind of take themselves a little too seriously. Sort of let's do the opposite of that. What's the dumbest possible name we could ever come up with?
And so, for example, when we brewed the double IPA, it wasn't called Ninja versus Unicorn.
Right.
So, we had a docket of names, just from exactly what he said. We had this list of funny
Right.
names. And this independent graphic designer had contacted us at some point and was like, oh, I'd love to do some free illustrations for you just to get my name out there or whatnot.
And I forgot about this name completely.
And so I gave him, I was like, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love for you to do some illustrations. It actually works out well because he did this illustration as well. And so I sent him a list of names and I was just like, well, pick a couple and just illustrate them. We'll come up with beers for him later. These weren't matched to beers yet at all. And so the first one he came at me with was Ninja versus Unicorn. And I remember emailing Garrett and calling him and being like, dude, check your email. This is amazing. And then when the beer was getting to be ready, we were like, dude, that should be Ninja ver's Unicorn. That's gonna be the double IPA. So it wasn't even.
Oh, so it's this is a cool name. We're gonna make it.
It's also BJ's a great artist, and his art stuff has been put away at this point. And
yeah.
So
I wasn't doing.
We're
any
we
art
have
at
finished
that time.
art. Yes, we're definitely doing.
Yeah, exactly. It was just we were so excited to have something clean and beautiful to put on a label, and we were just like, oh, it's such a cool graphic. And actually, in that same week, that same designer did the next beer that we're about to taste.
We'll do one before that.
Okay, sorry. We'll do the influence.
Yeah,
beer.
yeah. So you guys are off and running pretty much with a boom, you guys kind of, I think, detonated onto the scene. It just like, bang, automatically, huge scores in the 90s. It must have been...
Some of them.
No, I mean,
misses.
Ninja Unicorn, was just a massive success. I don't think too many people... entry into production brewing is a 95, 96 point beer, double IPA. So you had that going for you. You continued with a series of really different beers and just highly prolific. I wanted to kind of step back to what I was talking about a little bit before, because I really am interested in some of the other beers that you guys have made and the influences behind it, kind of the stories behind it. Another beer you guys mentioned was Sriracha Ace, as kind of a beer that not only was important to you, but directly influenced another beer, which is Something Hoppy This Way Comes.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about this beer and then also Something Hoppy, and kind of just taste the two side by side and see the inspiration and then the result of that inspiration.
So yeah, I think like when this beer came out, like I remember it was a while like.
It was a new hop. It came out the new hop came out with Citra. So Citra and Sriracha Ace were the two new hops.
And this is when Sriracha Ace was actually made in Japan. Made in Japan, grown in Japan. This was before we had actually domesticated it.
And we were actually drinking the Sriracha Ace hop and the Citra hop at Goose Island when Jared invited us to Southfest.
Oh yes, I remember.
It was that same day.
Ooh, that's a little bubbly.
But before BJ gets into what he was about to say, one thing that we both share is we really like dry beers, and that's why this is up here as an influence, because it's a dry beer of this new hop. And then go ahead, BJ.
Oh, I don't know where I was going after that.
Well, I can kind of, well, if you want to talk about this beer, you certainly can. I just thought it was kind of cool how it was an example of how prolific you guys are, how you guys are always trying new things, and I think it's very much a homebrew mentality, which is what I thought was kind of cool. So always something new. Let's just, why do this beer twice? Let's do different beers. I like this beer. I want to use that as an example. Wouldn't it be cool to do? I mean, am I making that up in my mind, or is there some?
I remember many times as like Pipeworks was developed and we started talking about what the company was and what it would be. I mean, like the example I always said is like, I don't want to be brewing 312 every day. You know, like we didn't want to get into that production environment where we're like, all right, here's our flagship beer that we brew like 5 out of 7 days a week.
There's always something said to perfecting something and being able to replicate that. But there's a lot of breweries that already do that. So.
Right.
Yeah, and it is pretty, well, I'm not going to knock, in fact, I'm a big fan as a consumer of people who absolutely like razor hone in on their recipes and their core brands, but you guys were the first brewery that I knew of who was just spitfire, like more and more. I thought it was really cool, and something that again was kind of unseen and very much, I thought, captured the spirit of not only homebrew, but just the craft beer scene of, I want to try something new all the time. Well, now you can try something new all the time within a single brewery.
And speaking of dry beers, someone that makes dry beers that we love and does what you just referred to is Fantôme in Belgium. And,
yeah, exactly.
And Fantôme beers here, and
Fantôme
beers here in the States are anywhere between like $15 to over $20, and you never know what you're going to get. Some of them could be absolutely terrible, and then some of them just blow your mind.
Shelton mitigates that a little bit. But I remember when we were in Belgium, you get some bad.
So BJ's saying, you got to get over here because you got to try all the new Fantômes that are over here.
Yeah.
And they're like, €3 or €2 for a Fantôme.
You're like, oh my god, this is so cool, and then you're like, wow, that's really bad.
So he'll make the same beer with the same label, but it'll be a different beer on the inside. So it'll be labeled as the same beer. But
Urban,
every year
says that he never
different.
Writes anything down.
Right.
So like, when like Green Ghost comes out and it's got all these herbaceous like things, he's like, I don't quite remember what I did last year. And so it's like, all right, it's a new recipe, dude. Like, it's a really different beer.
The tie-in with Fantôme as well. Another reason this beer is kind of influential on us is because we don't like Sriracha Ace hops. Really, we didn't. And you try a beer like this that's really dry, lagered, I believe. I don't think it's an ale, right?
It does seem.
It's a Saison, I believe.
I don't remember what they did.
What are you that we tried to make?
No, it isn't. It's definitely an ale. So yeah, it's definitely kind of a Saison. But we can't make it. Well, we can do Saisons at our place, but we couldn't to start. But this is just the perfect showcase of this hop that really doesn't work in any other way.
Right.
You know, Phantom kind of.
Yeah, it's a tricky hop.
Yeah.
It's a weirdo.
Right.
You know, it's
What
like
about
lemon
it?
and oak and vanilla.
Yeah, you get some vanilla, like vanillin type qualities.
It's a strange hop, you know.
Well,
lemongrass.
it's the lemon.
What I
Yeah,
always
it's
got.
kind of the lemon
Fruit
hop.
loopy.
Yeah.
It's very singular, you know. In that way, it's like Nelson Sauvin, you know, this like really just like outlier hop. It's not like just like the general tropical fruit that Citra and all the other C hops share, you know, with Citra being more forefront than all those others. But you know, like Nelson Sauvin is very like, you know, all right, I'm grape, and you know, like Sriracha Ace is like I am lemon and oak and like, you know, these weird flavors that are like I know what that hop is every time I taste it, you know.
So you guys just saw this beer and said, well, if this can take a hop I don't like and make a beer I really like out of it, I want to see what I can do with the hop, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted, like, I think, all right, so in that first year of brewing, one of the big roadblocks that we ran into was our lack of ability to get hops. You know, in that first year, like...
I want to talk about that, too.
I mean, we couldn't get Amarillo, we couldn't get Citra, we couldn't get all these hops
Our first double IPA, which was the unnamed one that we served at the map room the previous year that Ninja Reese Unicorn became, there wasn't a single hop in there that we had used the previous time.
Yeah, exactly. So
maybe
like,
Columbus.
The actual Ninja vs. Unicorn recipe was like scrapped when we went to go make our first double IPA because like we were a brand new brewery that was like missed the hop contracting, and so like what we were like given was like all the new blends like Falconer's Flight, Falconer's Seven Seas, Zythos. We had Columbus, I think we had Cascade.
And a lot of people, just so I can interject quickly, so these hops, this Falconer's Flight hop, this Seven Seas hop, which is 7 letter C, like sea hops, not SEAS, which I thought it was, like sailing the 7 seas.
It's the 7 Seas.
Yeah,
hops.
and Zythos, they're not hops. They are like kind of the chicken McNugget of hops. They take the scrapings off the floor and they try to taste them to get a reproducible character from it, but it is not the same hop anytime, and that's why they make it, is they can take a little bit of what's left over from different hop batches or
God, you make it sound so dirty, Chris.
Yeah.
God, you make it sound like a filthy bastard.
Yeah.
Brewery.
No, I mean, but what they do is like, okay, well,
icky. I need a shower.
right. So you have these 7 Cs, these Zythos hops, but I didn't even know that it was out there. Like Zythos isn't a hop. It's kind of a recipe.
All right. That being said, you've kind of bastardized these horrible things, but
the
people
hops that
love
went in there were good,
Zythos.
yeah.
Like it's an
I do
amazing
too.
blend. We still use it in our brewing today. Now that even though we have great hops, like it's still a backbone of a lot of our recipes.
Well, blending is great. I mean,
But it helps us stretch our showcase hops a little further by putting something.
And that's what they're kind of designed for. But bringing it back to the Sriracha Ace, I think Sriracha Ace was one of the hops that we got like a little bit a taste of that year. Like we got maybe like 44 pounds. Like we got 1 box of Sriracha Ace, and so like we're like, oh, let's showcase it with this something hoppy this way comes. I think we only did 1 batch in our first year. Two maybe. Yeah, because we had 1 box, so it was 22 pounds per batch. So yeah, I mean, like, so it was just us being like, oh my God, we finally have a hop that's like its own hop, you know? And so like we were really excited about that. So that's the birth of this beer was like in our first year.
Was this your first showcase hop beer?
Well, it was also it was also the first Imperial IPA we did. You know, the Ninja vs. Unicorn is really kind of more of a double IPA at the 8.5% range, and this one was a full 10.5%. So it's definitely the Imperial IPA.
And I think it's really kind of. I've always been very impressed by how savvy you guys have been, and I promise, I'm not trying to just, blow smoke. I think it's the Ninja series to me is, so the Citra Ninja, Centennial Ninja, Simcoe Ninja, yada yada, is an amazing example of how a small brewer can be nimble and use their size to their advantage. Where a lot of but your hop contracts are not as firm as some of the big guys. So if you have a hop contract for Citra, it may or may not come, and you can't rely on it. So you cannot have a consistent Citra beer. What you've done is say, okay, what we're going to do is take the beers that we get when we get them and showcase them as their own little kind of special one-offs. That's the way it's always looked to me, and I've always thought that, wow, I mean, talk about, well, here's what I wrote. I said, it says, am I looking into this much, or is this a way of taking lemons and making some damn good lemonade from it? Because that's the way I think of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it started with Citra Ninja. That was the first in the Ninja series, right? We had all of 44 pounds.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So I mean, again, it was like the same with the Sriracha Ace. I don't even know how we got that Citra.
Samuel Adams.
Oh yeah, so like, oh yeah, right. We won the bid with the Samuel Adams like give hops to little.
Well, they buy all the hops and then they dole them out.
Yeah.
After they don't need them anymore.
So I mean, that was our first thing. We were like, yeah, we have Citra. Oh my God, it's so wonderful. So we made Citra Ninja, and then like that beer was that's our biggest hit, I'd say, right?
Well, yes and no. I think BJ's missing a few facts here, which was we ran out of hops halfway through the year.
Sure.
So
which we do every year.
This is why we were scrapping for hops. And then, so yes, we made Citra Ninja, which was probably one of our biggest hits. And then after that, we go, okay, well, what the hell do we make next? That was enough to get us through this week.
Right.
What about next week? So we're good friends.
And we don't have any more Citra.
Right.
Right.
Our
That was
biggest
it.
hit, we don't have this
in one
hop.
go.
Right. So we have we got about 3 months left in the year to go, and the hops were also late, so we had about 4 months to cover in 2012. And we were friends with Nunzino and Hophead Farms, so we go, oh, okay, we can get some Cascade. He's like, no, I gave it away. You guys didn't say you wanted it. I was like, no, we want it. So we had to go back to the breweries that he gave it to.
Yeah, he actually got it back.
And got it back.
What a saint. What an amazing
breweries.
man. Those hop farmers, they're so great.
So we were Brand at Dry Hop, they were supposed to be open a year ago. Yep. Brand at Dry Hop was supposed to be open about a year ago, and they didn't, a little over a year ago, and they didn't get open, but they had already hop contracted, so they're sitting on a ton of hops. So we were able to get some from them. And luckily, for the past 4 months in 2012, in January 2013, we were able to kind of just scrap by with what we could find from other breweries across the country that need them. Yards Brewing helped us out a bunch.
Oh, cool.
I'm trying to think what the other one is, but Yards was a big one that helped us out.
And then what you guys would basically do is take the hop that you had available
Yes,
to
right,
you.
because that was the only one we had.
Right.
So, and it was also very easy for BJ to change the artwork, and we also, because it's basically the same artwork. So.
Right, but again, it's kind of using what some would see as a weakness as a strength.
But we loved it. We totally loved it because Centennial is one of my favorite hops. The Cascade is a different hop, and I think we used them well. And it wasn't like we're making the same beer and just changing the label. You could really definitely see the difference.
Do you see them as a showcase for that hop?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. So we do a little bit different in the boil with the bittering hops. So it's not a single hop beer, but it's mostly a single dry hopped beer, and then the boil off hops.
It's not a single hop beer,
which is the aroma and flavor hops. Yes, exactly. Well, there's no reason when we don't have a lot of Citra to spare or Cascade, this beautiful Cascade to spare, to put that in the boil where you're never going to taste it and you're just extracting IBUs. So, and the other reason you don't do it as a single hop is you like to put in some high alpha, which is the alpha acids where you get your bittering. In the beginning of the boil, because that allows you to put more finishing hops at the end of the boil, because you can only build a hop cone when you whirlpool out so tall, and if you've already taken up some of that hop cone with bittering hops, then that leaves you less aroma and flavoring hops.